So, Erling, thank you very much for joining me today. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Very nice to be part of your show too.
Thank you. I really wanted to speak to you for quite some time because I find the Hessdalen lights such a phenomenal part of, I suppose, the UFO subjects, but also part of science as well. But before we talk about the lights, would you be able to give us a background on yourself, please?
Yes, I'm just now working at the Østfold University College, and my primary work is doing lecturing in information technology. So I'm teaching students on different topics. I also run this Project Hessdalen, which we will talk about. And I also try to involve some of my students in my project. Well, but my basic income is from my lecturing at the university college.
I see, fabulous. And so, with regards to Hessdalen, can you just tell us about what it's like as a place, just to give us a bit of a picture of it?
Yes, Hessdalen is a small valley in Norway. It's only 15 kilometers long and at the most about 5 kilometers wide, and only about a little bit more than 100 people are living there. It's up in the mountains in the southern part of Norway, and it's a ordinary small valley in Norway. Well, I use the word ordinary. It's not ordinary. That was the wrong name of it.
Fabulous, thank you. And so, with regards to the Hessdalen lights, for anybody that may not have heard of it before, would you be able to just give us a breakdown of what it involves?
Well, in that valley, the inhabitants started to see bright lights moving just outside their houses, and they wondered what it was. And that was back in 1981. That the high intensity with up to 20 observations a week started in that small valley. Many people saw it, and sometimes they was a little bit afraid, of course. Well, if you can imagine you sitting inside your house out in the countryside looking out on the windows, and suddenly there is a great big light moving outside, crossing your window. I think more people would have been afraid. So that went on, and people started to talk about it, and we have done some study of it. We started the project back in 1983, in fact, 2 years after the whole thing started. Well, the the big activity started. It had been going on earlier as well, but not so much as it did back in late 1981. Uh, and our study have we can split the phenomena in maybe four different types, which are quite they're not uh, they're quite different.
Right.
Uh, One type is white or blue flashes, strong flashes, but they're lasting only some second or down to a fraction of a second. So many times it can be hard to see. We was aware of those when we saw some lights on a flashing light in our pictures. The second type is balls of light with different shapes, different behavior in the way it moves. Sometimes it can move slowly and stop. can be so strong that it had eliminated the ground beneath it, and then start moving again and continue for this about a couple of hours.
Wow.
At the most. It has also been seen moving very fast and lasting only some minutes. The shape is not always a ball of light. It can be all different kinds of shapes you can imagine. So we have discussed if we should name this type different types. Not only ball of light, which is moving differently and all these different shapes and speeds and so on. But I stick to the point that we keep this in the big box ball of light. The third one, which are that's consisting of several lights which seems to stick together. If you can imagine some kind of clouds of different lights, different colors, and when this cloud is moving, everyone is moving. This type has also been seen when it's not completely dark outside. And those who have seen it, they say there is something black object these lights are connected to. But when it's seen, when it's completely dark, we only see the different lights. Sometimes they're moving a little bit around, but they stick to the same place. That was a third one. And the fourth one is more, we can say it's well, I forgot to mention the third one. The different lights can have different colors too.
Right.
And I also forgot when I mentioned the type 2 with the ball of light, which are mostly yellow, that can also have another light attached to it with a different color, mostly red. But the fourth one, that is phenomena seen in the daytime, not always light. People have seen what they name crafts too.
Wow.
Well, what people ordinarily think of as an ordinary UFO in that sense. But we have very few of those reports. There has also been seen lights in the daytime, and that late lights in the daytime is more similar as the light type 2 with a ball of light, but the shape, the form, how it looked like, can be really strange. I can mention, for instance, one time a cube was photographed, and you can imagine a cube or more maybe rectangular, and one of the sides was very dark, and that side was towards the sun. So,
Right.
well, anyway, that's and these sightings, it's in this small valley, only 15 kilometers long. So that's a mystery.
That is very much a mystery. And so how did it come to your attention, and how did you decide to start actually studying it?
It came to my attention because the newspaper was writing about it. That was in the early 80s. And so many people, there were a lot of articles and in the newspaper. And many people went up to the valley to see it for themselves. And many people did see it for themselves. I was one of those. We decided, a group of some of my friends, we decided to go up there and have a look, see if we could see it. We went out in the mountainside. This is a rural area, not many houses and so on. So we split in different groups. We located each other on different mountains tops and was looking down into the Hessdalen Valley. And we communicated with the walkie-talkie and so on. I believe that if I'm lucky, maybe I see something small light in the mountainside or something. But what surprised me, this was a big, strong light, much stronger than I could ever imagine. And if you think you're standing there out in the mountainside, very dark, and suddenly this light show up, so strong, and it was moving slowly and around. Sometimes it was spotlight. It had spotlight actually moving up and down. This continued for 1.5 hours, and I was, of course, very impressed. I was very not shocked, but I was. Then I knew this was real when you see it for yourself.
Yes.
At that time, I was working as a researcher in the main capital, Oslo. And I think we must study this. Everyone believed that university would start studying, or that research establishment would start studying, but none did do anything. So I and some fellows, some friends, we met and discussed what should we do about it. Should we just have a look and see what's going on? We must try to find out more.
Yeah.
And that's the start of what we call Project Hessdalen back in 1983.
I think very impressive to see those kind of things and for yourself as well. So I can imagine it was, eye-opening. So how did you then plan to study it? I mean, obviously I assume you wanted to capture video and photographs, but did you have any other equipment to kind of measure it or try and figure out what it was?
Well, yes, we did. We had a lot of instruments in the field work, the first field work, which was run in the winter of 1984. We planned this field work very precisely, discussed with different research establishments in Norway and also abroad. And we managed to, we started the project in the summertime, in June 1983. And during the autumn, we planned to have a field work in January and February 1984. So during that half a year, we start working with getting people, getting help from research establishments, getting instruments. We borrowed all the instruments with a lot of help from the military and so on. We cooperated with the military. So we managed to get a bunch of different instruments, which we brought up in the Hessdalen Valley and we had a small cabin. We on wheels, which we put out in the field, and had these instruments running. So we measured the phenomena. We call it the phenomena. In the beginning, everyone called it UFO. The newspaper called it UFO. In the beginning, we called it UFO as well. But it turned out when I used that word UFO in discussing with scientists both at the military research establishment and at the different universities, the scientists were a little bit skeptic. You know, at that time, you shouldn't study UFO. So we decided to change the name. So instead of UFO, we call it the Hessdalen phenomena. And after we changed the name, it went much easier. It was easier to involve the different scientists and those we needed help from. So during that month in January and February 1984, we did a lot of different readings on the instruments, and we had people out looking for the phenomena and the cameras and so on. So we was lucky. We was at the spot when it was happening. Because, well, this started in late November, December 1981, and we had the fieldwork in January 1984. That's a long time, but we were lucky because the activity was very high all the time. So we managed to, during that nearly 1 month of operation with up to 40 people present, we managed to get, I think it was 55 visual observation, which we defined as the Hessdalen phenomena. Actually, during that period, we got more than 180 reports because we wanted the people to report everything they saw. But we have examined the different reports after the field work and come to the number of 55 with, I think it was 55, which are so strange that it was the Hessdalen phenomenon.
Wow. That's still a big number at 55 for just such a the 2-month period. So during that time, did you start forming any theories or hypotheses early on, or did you try and hold back from that?
No, I hold back because the most important thing was to get more scientific data, so that any theories could build upon. Right. So it's not only free fantasy. We have to have data. So that has been focused all the time to get the necessary data.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. That I think some people might just really want to know so badly that they push too quickly to try and get the answers. But I think, like you say, it's the right thing is to get the data, take your time and study it properly. So did you see much change after those first 2 months with the frequency of sightings, the type of sightings, or the data that you were getting? Like, how did the investigation progress after the initial start?
After the fieldwork in '84, we had a lot of data. We had a lot of meeting discussing the different data we got with different scientists, and I report, a technical report, which people can find on the Hessdalen.org website, www.hessdalen.org. My full report is out there, and you can read all about our measurements, what we did, and we decided to go on another year, do a new field work the year after in January 1985, which we did, but it seems that the activity had gone down to a much lower level. So during the 1985 field work, with a lot of people as usual, better equipped and everything, it was better prepared. Although we had more bad weather as well, I should point out that.
Right.
But we only got one good observation. So sadly, that was too little to make a new fieldwork the year after. So, but anyway, we got the data we had mostly from 1984 though, and we wanted to get the science community more involved. So we started to talk about that and so on. So, and that's...
So when, sorry, go on.
Yeah.
So when did it really change and progress any further? Like, did you have any collaborations with researchers or even other countries over, say, the 80s? You know, because or what point did you take it to the next step?
Well, in the 80s, I mainly discussed with the Norwegian scientist. We had some few communication with scientists abroad too, but the activity, the work was done by Norwegian scientists. With this, actually the project went down to a very low level because we decided to not continue another year. But it seems that the activity still continued up there, even though in a much lower level than it was in the early 80s. I discovered that when I was visiting Hessdalen in 1993. That's 8 years after our last fieldwork, which we had in 1985. I had a presentation of the inhabitants up there because they wanted to know what had happened since we had this field work. So I went up there and told them about, I had been to different conferences, there are a lot different foreign media started to tell about it, and so on. Then during my presentation or after my presentation, the people said, well, it still continues, they said. I was very surprised because I hadn't heard anything about it. And I asked, well, what so? I haven't heard about it. Why don't you tell it anymore? No, we don't tell it anymore. We were so ridiculed in the press the first time, and people come up with all different stupid explanations. So we stopped talking about it. Well, I thought maybe we should start a project again. It's been a long time since we had the last field expedition. So I started Project Hessdalen again, used a companion at my college though, In the first field works in 84 and 85, we was a group of 5 people who was working with this, and we had 40 people participating. But now I had one companion at my university college, which wanted to go on with this. We had a scientific workshop with several scientists from 8 different countries
Wow.
around the world, the States, Russia, and different countries in Europe, and even Japan was part of it. They went to Hessdalen. We had a workshop. We discussed what to do and so on. And what the good thing was that the press changed attitude when they saw that there was a great scientist from abroad who came to Hessdalen to discuss the phenomena. So the result was that the ridiculing of the people who saw this nearly stopped or was much lower. So I think the people up there was relaxing a little bit. It was not so afraid of telling about what I was seeing anymore. That's great. Well, we put up an automatic station. I had my students to make an automatic station with computers and cameras and so on, and we put it up in Hessdalen, and it has been working. It's still working. In fact, got data and get mostly data on video and small film footages, which are captured automatically. We don't need to be there anymore.
That's really helpful.
Yeah. I should also mention that another thing we did do was to involve young Norwegian students together with their teachers, where they stay up in Hessdalen 1 week during the autumn, September or October. It's cold up there though. And we got young classes. In the beginning was 15, 16 years old students together with the teachers. We brought instruments up there. We call it the whole thing science camp.
Right.
And the students would run the instruments and get scientific data. On the learning process of it was great, and we told the student that no one knows what this phenomena is, and now you must help us to find the answer, and maybe you can get the data which are needed for a teaching book. You can imagine those young students was used to read a book of how it is, and they must learn what's in the book, because that's. But now the situation completely different. Now we said we don't have this textbook, we don't have this information, and you must help us. And that made some attitude in the students. They was very, very eager to do the study, do the work, and they learned a lot. So on the pedagogical way, in teaching way, this was very good.
That
This
sounds
was very
brilliant.
Yeah, it was very popular as well. Even if the it was cold and not comfortable, they stayed in tents out in the wilderness with instruments. But even though I thought it was very, very exciting, so we started that. It's nearly 20 years ago,
Wow.
and we still have it. But we have now we have students which are older. We have students from our college which are 18 years or more.
Right.
So we are more grown-up people.
Wow, that's amazing. It does sound like it would have been very exciting. I certainly would have loved to have been a part of something like that.
Yes.
Now, would it be possible if we could actually have a look at some of these captures that you've caught over the years? Is that okay?
Yes, of course. I can share my screen. Let me see if I pick up several pictures, of course. Maybe I should start with this is the light I saw the first time, my
Wow.
first observation. Let me take down, that was back in 1982, my first
Right.
field work with my friends going up there. And I just knew that it was real. Let me see if I can pick up some other interesting stuff. Well, I mentioned that I made an automatic station, which you can see the blue box on the bottom.
Sure.
And we made a tower with some instruments and cameras and so on, a radar on top of it. That blue box is still in working operation.
Right. And did the phenomena show up on radar?
Yeah.
Wow.
It did. The radar we have here, we haven't got it on that radar. We had it on the first radar we had in 1984. The reason why we don't have it here is this is digital and pick up all different kind of stuff. So it's a very difficult to adjust. So we get only the phenomena.
Right.
See if I can pick up some other. Yeah, maybe the station we had in 1984 when we had the first field work. I mentioned that we borrowed the cabin. You can see here where a lot of instruments we borrowed. That was in our first field work in 1984. The radar we got it on, you see here.
Sure.
We have also some antennas and so on. So with that, the instruments inside here, we captured much data. Luckily, I would say, because we have had some problems with the power. So many times when the power or the phenomena showed up, the power went down. It disappeared. Luckily, not all the times. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had any data. But so the year afterwards, we had a new station and better equipped. You see the radar on top of it. And we had all the instruments inside and so on. Better equipped, in fact. But during that, I should mention also that the power to this box, we had a cable down to a nearest house, which has this place was 800 meters away from this this house. So we brought a long cable with us up, a thick cable. The first year, the year before, we had not such a solid, thick cable. So
Right.
that may be one of the reasons why we had problems with the power. So that was in 1985. And during the years, we have got it on radar. We have a lot of pictures. Well, maybe I should pick up this radar screen. You can see the mountains here.
Yeah.
Here is mountains. Here's a mountain here and here. The mountains is much lighter. And you see below these red dots. That red dots was made by a pencil. We had a plastic in front so we could mark where the strange phenomena was showing
Right.
up. So that's why you see this red one. But
Sure.
when I took the picture, you see something below the red dots.
Yeah.
And here's the phenomena. And
Wow.
what's strange that it seems to be very intense, very strong,
Yeah.
nearly as strong as the mountain.
Yes.
So it gives a very strong reflection on the screen, as if it was something solid.
Sure.
And we could follow the lights on the radar screen, and we could also not always we could see the light, but we could sometimes just follow it moving on the radar screen when nothing was seen. Was looking outside to see if there was anything, but it was impossible to see. But the
Right.
radar picked it up.
Oh, wow.
This is quite fun.
Wow.
We call it the hand.
Yeah.
That was that was also a picture taken of the first fever, tour I had up there in
Right.
September 1982. So
Wow.
several pictures was taken. Let me see if I have some of the. Yes, maybe this one is interesting. You see some kind of oscillation. You see
Yes.
this picture was on long exposure time.
Right.
So the light and the camera was standing on tripod, very stable.
Yeah.
And during the exposure time, the light was moving, and then it made this track on the film. And up here, it seems to start oscillating, moving
Yeah.
back and forth. And actually, saw this in real life. I was at the location when it happened.
Wow.
He stopped the photographer here. That's why he stopped. It
Right.
continued, of course, but no camera or no picture.
Right.
And it became bigger and bigger, and until it went off. It
Right.
was too big.
Wow. Ah, there we
So
go.
people can see where Hessdalen is located, and it's just south of Trondheim city in the southern part of Norway, and it's a small valley. It's about from Trondheim city. It's about 120 kilometers south,
Right.
southeast, in fact. And you see the Hessdalen Valley is only 15 kilometers long, so it's not
Sure.
so big. Only 100 inhabitants. And you have some mountains in the west. Mount Finnsøhøgda is most famous, Mount Ragnefjell and so on. Stordalshøgda, you have different lakes too.
Right.
And if you can see from this Mount Ragnefjell towards Mount Finnsøhøgda, you see that the mountain is a very long mountain,
Yeah.
several kilometers long.
Right.
It was actually down in this mountainside. The light was first seen as a light standing in the mountainside, and people was wondering what could that be. and so on. And suddenly they saw it was moving out from the countryside. They're moving down this or to the right, following the valley.
Wow.
Here's the other direction.
Yep.
And well, maybe I should tell you that the big flap started in 1981, and in the end of 1984, up to 20 observations a week. Let me see. We have. Maybe I should move on. We don't have the whole night, the whole evening. So anyway, the main issue was to get this, get scientific data and get it accepted.
Sure. Yes.
So it was 2 field works, January 21st to February 26th in 1984, and January 14th to 28th with instruments, and to February 10th without any instruments. Well, I mentioned that we had some problems with the power when the phenomena came, showed up in the first field work, and we got the feeling, could it be some connection here? Was it due to the phenomena?
Right.
So we thought maybe we could test that. So we had one period with full instruments and one without any instruments. But sadly, we got only one good observation back in 1985. Even though this was in the period without any instruments, it is too little to prove anything.
Yes, of course.
Well, we have several involved the students. Well, the summary, we had 1994 when we started. We had started with a scientific workshop where got scientists from 8 different countries. And after that, the media started to, well, actually the media stopped ridiculing the people after that. We set up this automatic station in 1998. We had some cooperation with Italian scientists. We had some field works together with those people from Italy. We call it the EMBLA Fieldworks.
Right.
And since 2002, we had science camp for young students. Actually, in 2010, we had 2 automatic field stations. That was in cooperation with our scientists from France, which was also involved. And they had some instruments they wanted to use, but they couldn't use our station because we had power, 220 volt. We have internet connection.
Right.
This sensors was too sensitive for electrical power, so we had to use batteries and so on.
Right.
So we decided to build 2 small new automatic stations with batteries and solar cells. That we did in 2010. Yeah, we changed the name though from UFO to the Hessdalen Valley. Yes, I mentioned that.
Yeah.
And I mentioned the different categories: strong or white or blue flashes, lasting from fraction of a second up to a couple of seconds, yellow ball of light, and which have different shapes, can stand still for minutes, hours, move slowly and fast. At the most, we measured the speed of 30,000 kilometers an hour.
Wow.
30,000. That's much faster than any airplane.
Yeah.
So that was picked up by the radar.
Right.
Several lights together, connected to an object. And objects have also been seen. That is one of the objects types.
Wow.
as I described. We have several of those too, not so many though. This was the first one I mentioned, I saw. It lasted for more than 1 hour. And if you can see precisely, it's a mountain in behind.
Yes, yeah.
Maybe I should move on faster. I don't know how long time you want.
That's fine.
Continue.
We can just no, that's fine. We can carry on looking if you want to go through.
Yeah, fine.
Excellent.
Blue flashes,
Wow.
lights coming out from the main light. This is light moving across the sky during the exposure time. So it makes a track on the film when it's moving.
Sure.
And then we saw there was some lights coming out from this big light. That has also been measured later, coming out or moving into the big light.
Right.
It can change shapes from more not so clear outer shapes. And the second flash, you see there's something inside here starting to glow a little bit more. And on the third flash, you see only this part with a strange, I mentioned these balls of light, which have sometimes very strange shapes and so on. Here you can see what I'm talking about.
Yes.
It can move very fast. The photographer said that when I took the picture, it disappeared, he said. But what he didn't know is, well, he developed the film, that was back in the 80s. He had managed to get the disappearing onto film. So one of the pictures is that it makes such a sharp angle. If you can imagine, you see it here. When then it disappeared during the exposure time, it moved like that, moved down, sharp angle, and up like this, and disappeared very fast.
Wow.
Yeah, this is another famous observation too. This is a drawing made of the observer. It was standing here in the beginning. It was moving in front of this mountain. Another drawing from above. You can see this Hessdalen. This is a mountain which you see here. It was the photographer was standing here on a small cottage, and it was moving towards him, and it turned to the left for him. Though it was moving like this. He managed to take a couple of pictures, and that day it was snowing. It was foggy. You can imagine the clouds was down on the mountains, and you see this light even in such weather condition.
Wow.
And he took that picture, and it moved in the direction of the arrow, and it disappeared behind this hill. It was a foggy, the clouds was down, and if it had been clear weather, you would have seen the mountain behind here.
Okay.
So it turned out to be possible to see in all weather conditions.
Right.
Yeah, this is another picture. We call it the truck. We have analyzed some of the pictures to see how the if it's most of the pictures we have analyzed. But the reason why we call it that truck is that someone has seen this in the backyard of the house, and it was as big as the truck.
Wow.
They said. Yeah, here's another story. There's a lot of different stories here. Someone was standing on this mountain here, and they saw a light was coming from the north, moving across this lake, and it illuminated inside the circle. It illuminated. It was strong, so it illuminated the big part of this lake.
Sure. That's a big
Well,
illumination.
yes, here's a high speed. You have different. I mentioned those who had several lights connected.
Yeah.
Here's one of the observation, and he saw it also when it was not completely dark. They was drawing some kind of black object with the lights indicated on where it was, a red light in front and two yellow in the back. And he took a picture. You had this red light in front and these
Right.
yellow lights in the back. And here's more drawings made by the observer. The upper one, they tell about a light in the end, and there's something which connect these lights. This is a shape which has been seen. The lower one, this is a triangle with the red light in the top of it. This is more a daylight observation. I mentioned also that it has been seen in the daylight. This
Yeah.
is a reconstruction.
Okay.
It's not a picture of it. It's a reconstruction of the description of the phenomena. It was brown with yellow lights in front, and it was moving slowly. It was the pictures had been taken. You see the forest in the background, not so far
Yes.
away, very close, in fact. So the distance to the phenomenon was very close, a couple of 100 meters maybe to the forest. So it was between the observer and the forest.
I see.
There's other reconstruction of the descriptions of what people have seen up there. Another one. This is all reconstruction.
Yeah.
And there have been, you see the mountain where it has been seen. And actually this let me call it a ball of light. It's not a ball, but you see the shape.
Sure.
It was described as this by the observer. And what's this? One of the strange thing is that the sun was from the left and illuminating this on the left part of it.
I
But
see.
the brightest side of this light was on the right side. So,
Wow, that's strange.
on the other side of from where the sunshine is coming. Yeah, this is also a famous story. A woman was driving her car up to Hessdalen. The road to Hessdalen goes up from the lower valley, Midtre Gauldalen, and you have to climb up a little bit before you come up to Hessdalen. And
Right.
when she was driving the car in the darkness, she noticed it was very bright around the car. So some few meters afterwards, when she was up here in Hessdalen, she saw this hat. It was moving into the valley. It didn't follow the car anymore. It moved in more into the valley and
Right.
disappeared. And but she noticed the shape of it. Here's another one. I mentioned the daylight objects. This is a drawing made of the observer, and he described it. It looked like some metallic, and outside there was a glowing light which was onto this object. He called it the object, though.
Right.
And it was in the daytime, it slowly was visible, and it wasn't visible the whole thing at once, but part of it started to be visible, and after some not a long time, it more and more of it become visible, and then after some seconds, I think, he saw the whole thing. This description has also been seen by another witness down in the valley.
Right.
Yeah, the fieldworks, 1984 and 1985, and the fieldworks I mentioned. Where some of the instruments inside, there's a lot of different, and we have some camera with grating. We had infrared viewer, we had spectrum analyzer to see if there was some electromagnetic noise.
Right.
We had a seismograph installed in the valley to measure if there was any movement in the ground, so it could be some small seismic activity, but not anything was measured of local seismic activity.
Right.
Okay, we had the magnetometer who could measure the magnetic field, and we had the radar, and we had the Geiger counter, which could measure any radioactive radiation. The most interesting part was the radar and also magnetograph, which picked up something.
Wow.
So, well, the radar, it got it on radar, even when nothing was seen by the observers. High speed was 30,000 kilometers an hour. The spectrum analyzer could sometimes be electromagnetic noise in a broad frequency band.
Okay.
Magnetograph, you can measure the Earth's magnetic field and how it changes. It's not stable, it is fluctuation sometimes, and it can be magnetic storms where the magnetic field has a high activity. We could measure that, and some of the observation was during high magnetic activity.
Okay.
Most spectacular test was the laser we used. We used it, not a strong laser, very weak. Notice very weak laser, red laser, 1 milliwatt only. That's very weak.
Wow.
We used that to point towards a flashing light, and the flashing doubled the flashing frequency when it's directed to the laser. Or when we use the laser directing to it. That happened in 8 of 9 times.
Gosh.
Yeah, I mentioned this was 53 visual observation.
Right.
I mentioned 55, but I was not sure. It was 53.
No, that's fine.
And rocking motion was sometimes felt. That was really strange. If you can imagine you standing out on solid rocks up in the mountain.
Yeah.
And you're having the instruments with cameras and so on, looking for the phenomena. And suddenly you feel as if you are standing in a boat in the ocean, waving back and forth. I call it a rocking motion. Maybe it's more correct with saying a waving motion.
I see.
So you can imagine you're standing in a boat out in the ocean with a lot of waves, and this boat is moving back and forth. And that was a feeling. You were standing still on the mountain, but that was feeling inside. So something disturbed your inner senses for this movement, the inner ear. Yeah. I mentioned interaction because 1 week later we use a red laser, and as I mentioned, it doubled the frequency in 8 of 9 times.
Gosh.
A little bit later, 1 week later, a little bit more than 1 week, a red laser was seen moving on the ground close to the feet of the observer. So the red light on the ground moving around their feet was suddenly coming, and it looked like the same type of light we use as the red laser.
How strange.
Yeah, that was really strange. I put the text in interaction with a question marks, of
Yeah.
course, but it was very easy to think in that ways.
Right.
Yeah, we had a workshop. We started in March 1994. We had 8 different nation scientists from 8 different countries. They, with some famous professor, Boris Smirnov, said something. The phenomena contains some qualitative elements which at the present time has no analog in science. Thus, the solution of this problem must lead to new concepts in science.
Yeah.
And that's a strong statement.
Indeed.
David Freiberg of Stanford said that the Hessdalen project has established beyond doubt that the Hessdalen lights are real physical phenomena. Now, these phenomena lies outside of already known physics. That's also a strong statement.
Yeah.
So the scientist was interested. So we got 27 of them coming to Hessdalen for this workshop.
Wow.
Yeah, and I said the press changed after this workshop. No more
Sure.
smiling when reporting about observation in Hessdalen. That was really good. Yeah, we had some EMBLA field work together with scientists from Italy and so on during some years. We measured this automatic station up in hillside in Hessdalen. You see maybe the small blue box here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's still there. And you see how it was in 1998 when we started with the camera outside. Then in 2001, we got this tower with the radar and some cameras up there. And 2011, even more equipment and so on. Well, yeah, this is just a summary. It is not updated, so that's why I went faster through it.
Sure.
This is one of the pictures taken by the automatic camera. The camera picture goes into a computer inside the blue box, which analyze the pictures and capture what they think is interesting. And this is one of the lights. And it seems that this light has been moved very fast, either up or down. It's impossible to say.
Sure.
Because we can see when we studied this light, we can see, understand that it had a high speed.
Right.
Yeah, we have, I mentioned lights coming out or going into the phenomena. Here's a series of video where you see light is this upper here is you see something here, then it comes a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, and then it disappeared. Another similar observation, this is from the automatic station, and you see the light it's reacted on. It started the video recorder. At that time we don't now we have recording directly on the computer.
Sure.
But at this time we use a video recording, and this is the second. Well, the alarm is start a video recording, and as long as the video is recording, the alarm system doesn't take any new pictures. But as soon as the picture stops and the light is there, it took a new alarm picture. You have a system which analyzes the pictures all the time. When it finds something interesting, it defines it as an alarm picture, and it starts recording. So this picture, it was the alarm picture which started the recording, and it stopped recording. And this is the second picture when it starts again.
Okay.
And let me see if you manage to see something here. Hopefully I can got it onto. I'm not sure if the computer is good. Well, anyway, what you can see, if it's starting, it will move across here.
Right.
And I think I should let me see. Move on to tell about the science camp, where we take young students up into the valley, in tents and so on. And young students and the teachers are doing research during 1 week in Hessdalen. That was from 2002. And instruments, cameras stay in tents during the night. There's a map showing where we had the different stations of students, the red one, and the blue box where the which I just told you about was here.
Yeah.
And at that time, we had a headquarters up here in the house.
Right.
Well, here you see some pictures of the situation up in the mountains, where the students stay in tents on different tents. They have cameras outside. There are also cameras inside the tent, as you see here, with a lot of computers and so on, and a lot of cameras outside. Here's another station. We call it the base camp. Another station we call Skarvan. Instruments and so on, the same thing. And here's another station, a young one. You have tents, also a cabin where you have instruments inside. It was possible to come to this camp by car, so that's why they're staying in the cabin. Other of the stations you have to walk to get there.
Right.
Yeah. And the phenomenon can show up anytime. So it's exciting, and the students love it, and they learn science and experience the unknown. So the first science camp, 2002, more than 600. Well, actually now it's more than 1,000.
Wow.
Students. The attitude to such phenomena is or change to the positive, and the phenomena become more accepted as a real phenomenon. Because when you see it for yourself, and the students see it, it will change their attitude. They know it's something there. Yeah, we have used a lot of different instruments up in the stations, where they bring instruments with them up in the tents. Here's one picture taken from one of the field stations, and you see the interesting one is that this blue. This picture was taken in the nighttime with a very long exposure time. What you see, the lights on the left, you see the light from houses in Hessdalen, and the color you see is we used a grating in front of the camera, and then it's possible to see the different color this white light consists of.
I see.
So if you study these colors, you see some of them, you have some spots and so on. And by analyzing this, it's possible to find out what the stuff is in the light. Is it a gas or is it anything else?
Right.
But back this blue light was captured, and you see it was moving during the exposure time. It was moving like this, and it seems to be some kind of oscillating, moving. Much so, not so far away from what we measured in 1984.
Yeah.
We have had pictures of the optical spectrum. You see what's inside the star here is the phenomena, and you see the colors up here and colors down here.
Yeah.
What you see here is something known. You have light from a church. You have a car who had moved in the valley. This is the road, and this is the optical, the colors from the light in the car. But what's interesting is the colors coming from this phenomena, which is here.
Right.
And we have had, this is just a part of this one. And you have some analyzing what kind of elements which are inside. Well, you have nitrogen, oxygen as usual, but you have also scandium, which was very interesting, though. Scandium is very rare element, so that it discovered that was very strange. I must mention that it was only in these two pictures that was proposed. You have other optical spectrum which shows something else, not continuous. Well, not in a way that it's possible to pick up the elements, but it looked like a continuous spectrum. Well, let me see. Yeah, this picture was Aurora Borealis. It was taken on the date 20th of September 2007, 10 minutes past 9. When you have this Aurora Borealis, there is a lot of magnetic activity in the atmosphere.
Yeah,
that's natural. That's common. So we know that during this evening, this night, it was a high magnetic activity. What happened 10 minutes after this picture was taken? This was taken 10 minutes past 9. 9:20 or 21:20. Flashes started to show up. The flashes was very short in duration. It could be some minutes between each, about 5 minutes, I think, in the beginning, and a new flash, and the time for the next flash was a little bit shorter. So the time between the flashes becomes shorter and shorter. This picture you see here is a picture which was set up. The camera system was set up to run automatically. It took one picture every minute, and it was transferred to the computer directly and saved there. This was running automatically all the time. And what you see here is a reference light. We had put a reference light onto a mountain, which could be seen. And if you see the colors up here, you can analyze that and see what kind of elements, what kind of lamp we used.
Yeah.
So the hope was that we managed to get that reference light together with an observation.
Sure.
Yeah. What showed up was this, but that happened, that was in another direction than the reference light and where the camera was pointing. It was a completely different direction. So this movement, we had to move the camera during the exposure time. This light is from this base camp in the mountainside. And this is the reference light, actually, which was actually down here. So during the exposure time, they moved the direction of the camera. It was standing on tripod. It moved it during the exposure time. So this picture is not correct in that way.
Right.
And you see the light, which was interesting up here, but the movement is maybe due to the movement of the camera.
Sure.
But the next picture, they got this one. And then the camera was standing still.
Okay.
And you see the optical spectrum. We had the camera with the grating in front. So the colors of this light can be seen down here. And it seems to be some kind of continuous optical spectrum, which could indicate some heat, but none has ever reported of any heat from this light.
Okay.
But after that outbreak, I mentioned these flashes, strong flashes started 9:20 and 5 minutes between each flash, and it become less and less. And at 9 or very close to 10, 9:58, we got that. It was 2 outbreaks, and I call it outbreak because it was not only a flash, but this big light. And after that I call it outbreak of light, nothing was seen.
Wow.
It was only stars and so on. So nothing, not any flash or light or strange thing. It seems to stop. We had radar also looking in the same direction, and it's capture it. And what the radar location, this is the location where the picture was taken.
Right.
This was the Finnsahögda, and you see the light on the base. Finnsö was here, and the light was actually behind or further away from Finnsahögda. So, but we have a station here too. They saw it in this direction, so we could find out where it was.
Right, I see.
And the direction, the size, and so on, 2.2 kilometers, and so on. But anyway, what's interesting? This radar was pointing in this direction, and it started to record something at 20:35, or so. That is nearly 1 hour before the first flash was seen. I mentioned 21:20 was the first flash seen, but this radar say there is something here at 2035.
Wow.
And this radar recordings continued all the time. We saw the flashes, and also at the 10 o'clock or 9:58 or
Right.
21:58,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
But the radar continued, even if we couldn't see any more flashes or any lights at all. It continued for, I think, nearly 1 hour afterwards before it stopped. So it seems that the phenomena had come to the area, but we couldn't see it nearly 1 hour before the first flash, and it disappeared more than 1 hour after the last light we saw.
Wow.
Then the camera didn't see it anymore, or the
Sure.
radar didn't see it anymore. Yeah, here's some the other, and we have analyzed the different. We are not going go through that. We analyzed the optical spectrum, calibrated on Vega, and it seems to be a lot of ultraviolet.
Right.
Yeah, that was one of the most interesting observations I've had in the science camp.
Right.
Yeah, I could mention that the science camp, which in the beginning was a young student from high schools and so on, but now we have brought it into our Østfold University College at fieldwork in Hessdalen, and here you can choose a study subject. We call it fieldwork,
Right.
where the student need to prepare the fieldworks out in the field with tents and all the logistic instruments. We have the instruments though, but they have to organize everything
Right.
and run a fieldwork. So this is very, very, they learn a lot. Yeah, that was maybe, now I come into maybe another thing, which is another place in Norway where a track was set in the snow. This is the southwest of Norway, in Setesdalsheiene. Some people was then in this cottage. They saw a light was coming in front of this hillside on the other side of the lake, and stopped and went down to the snow. It was snow at that time they saw it. Here's another picture. You see part of the roof of this
Okay.
cottage.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the view, they saw it, and the black cross is where the light had been moving, and it had been moving in front of this hillside on the other side of the lake, and stopped there, went down on the snow. It was snow everywhere and ice on the lake. It went down on the snow and made some tracks in the snow. And you see the tracks here,
Whoa.
picture, about 60 centimeter wide. It was spiral formed, 2.5 meters between each. And the bacteria, we measured the bacteria in the snow, and it seems that actually in the track, the snow there consisted of very few bacteria.
Right.
Those few bacteria who have survived, I call it that, because it seems that all the other bacteria, which are normal in snow, had been
Sure.
killed. It
Wow.
didn't show up. But those who showed up was another type of bacteria which is very hard to kill. Here you see some, you can find out how much bacteria it is by counting these dots here.
Sure.
And you see here a sample of the snow between the tracks in the middle, not so far. This is 2.5 meters between.
Right.
So in the middle, it's not so far away from the track. It seems to be normal bacteria, as in a reference further away. the bacteria hadn't been killed there. It had been killed just beneath the track.
Right. That's incredible.
Yeah. I've been to other places too. It's in Australia. They call it the Minman lights. It's similar light, blue flashes. I took this picture where you got 3 flashes, and the reason why I managed to take that picture is that when I was out in the field there, I believed I saw some flashes, but they're lasting so short in time, so we are not sure if there is something or not. But I knew from Hessdalen that when they start to show up, very likely that they continue. So not only one flash, but several flashes coming in a in a short period of time. So I took the picture and managed to capture some of the flashes.
Fantastic.
Here's another flash there. Yeah, I could mention I had some magnetometer to measure Earth's magnetic field. And this was very exciting. The day we had the most observation, we had 4 observations at the most.
Wow.
One of the nights we were out there, and the black arrows indicate where we had the observation, and see that the magnetic field increased in intensity. The size of this green, so you can look at the green stuff, is very big.
Yeah.
And here, this was recorded onto a writer. This was before you have these laptops where you can bring with you and record everything onto the laptop. We had a writer with paper, which wrote down the signals from the magnetic sensor we had with us. And I wanted to know how fast this moved, so I increased the speed of the writer just here, I could find the frequency, and it was 2 hertz. And then I went back to normal speed again. So that was strange.
Wow.
I could also mention that we had power failures. I could also mention that I mentioned that in Hessdalen, but I didn't tell about the batteries. Very often we had batteries problems. We put new batteries into our equipment, those who needed the battery, before we go out in the field. And when we are out in the field, they stopped working.
Wow.
And it seems to be no power at all. And we had several batteries. We changed batteries all the time to get fresh, but I lasted very short. And we had a bunch of batteries. We thought we have to throw them away. There are no power left.
Right.
But we decided to just check if there was really empty. But we measured. They were full voltage again.
Wow, strange.
So when the battery was out in the field, it didn't have any voltage at all. But when it was back from the field, not in the field anymore, the power went back. Yeah, this is another thing from Hessdalen. It's a big piece of wet soil which was moved from this place, not so very far. But the strange thing, it was big, and it was moved in one piece.
Wow.
No one saw the moon. None saw the movement, but they saw this when some hunters come to the area at a hunting season, and they found this. And it was really strange that such big piece of wet soil could be moved out and moved some meters without damage.
Yeah.
You see, it is one piece. That was really strange. This is a strange picture taken in the daytime, and so it was seen when the afterwards.
Right.
And the strange thing, as this cube, the black thing is towards the sun. The sun is coming from this direction, and the black thing is to that. Yeah, I can. We are finished now. A lot of things, speculation, of course. Yeah, we're not going through that. I think we finished there. So we managed to finish. Let me see if I can. Yeah, you can. Yeah, not. This is nothing to do with it. So
anybody that wants to actually sort of keep up to date with what's going on, is it the best thing to do is to visit the Project Hessdalen website? Just is that right?
www.hessdalen.org.
I'll make sure to put that in the description of the video when I post it on YouTube as well.
Yes.
So people can just click it direct.
Yes.
Well, listen, Erling, thank you so much. That was absolutely fascinating. And I just wish you nothing but the best in the future for your continued work.
Thank you.
And I will be keeping up to date with the website and that. So maybe in the future, if you have some new results, then maybe we can speak again on the subject.
Yeah.
That would be fantastic. Thank you ever so much.
Sure.
I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Great.